let's get started. And today we are going to be jumping into our 4th episode of Hearths Crafts. And now I have some special guests with me today. Everybody is going to be coming at this from different perspectives, different conversations, talking points, and different corners of life of WoW. But without further ado, let me introduce my guest host, starting with TouchPad, since you just joined us as well. Let us know where you're coming from, what kind of content you do, and then what you're excited about talking to us about today as well.
First, is this a Warcraft podcast?
This is that and hopefully like Super Meat Boy, a little bit of like indie. just
okay, because like I'm not too familiar with WoW at all. Ignore the background. That's fine. That's all unrelative. They're just random gifts. I have no idea what they mean. So hi, I'm TouchPadWarrior. I am a WoW content creator of like 9 years. Took a while to be successful at it, but hey, here we are. Neat. I stream mostly on Twitch. That's my primary thing, and then I do content on Instagram, TikTok. If there's a platform for it that's not lewd, I'm probably on it. So,
in the lewd ones as well, and then let's do MistressMinty as well.
Hi, I'm MistressMinty, but you can also just call me Minty. I am another WoW creator, and I think I probably specialize more in content that probably talks more about being a gamer inside of the WoW community, and also just doing giveaways and making sure I find like the really good people and bolstering them, and always chilling out and hanging out and laughing.
That's always good. And Sparey as well.
Hi, I'm Sparey. I also talk about just kind of like who we are as we play games and things of that nature. But I'm a therapist in my my real life job, so I really enjoy talking about the crossover of just like the social contexts of what video games do for us as people, and mental health and life and all that good stuff.
The conversation talking points that I think that are really important are kind of coming up on my feed constantly of what's the big problems in Mythic Plus? What are the big problems that are occurring right now in WoW that's making sort of the foundations kind of wither away? What are the things that are pulling at WoW that should be as successful as it could possibly be, with a pretty good season 2 and a pretty decent expansion? I would say since Legion, we haven't had an expansion that's kind of had this long lasting success. So what are the big things that are pulling at it? And so for me, as someone who's been jumping into Mythic Plus recently, it's been some of those pretty big, like degrading queue times as being one of those things that if I start playing the game, I get pulled away. So does anybody here, what are your big issues with Mythic Plus right now? What are your big issues in the game right now? I would say in end game content that is sort of making you go like, well, I guess I won't play as much as I thought I would today. What are the big things? And anybody can chime in at any time.
Let me hit the buzzer. I want to hit the buzzer. As a tank protection paladin in M+, I wouldn't call myself, I've never claimed to call myself a pro at the game, or, never really called myself even a moderately competent player, even though I do have achievements in both PvP and PvE, and I do make guides every now and again on M+ and PvP. However, tanking is a feat when it comes to M+, especially. One thing that I've noticed is people are saying that M+ is actually very hard at the lowest levels. And when I first got into it, I was like, how can you possibly? What do you mean? But then I actually seen it, that, there is no... I don't want to harp on the actual players, because I think that, different WoW players have different levels of competency and or in-game literacy.
It always seems to be at the low end or the high end too.
Yes, and I do feel that there's no real barrier of entry, other than the fact is you completed one key, now you bump up 1 or 2, and then you have to go with a whole different team or something like that. So as a tank, when you have the tank role, you have to be very vigilant. You have to have like a bird's eye view. If anybody's seen my stream, you see that I play like on top of my character, so I can see frontals, see lines, see dots, see circles. But I think that there's no probably barrier of entry that would probably tell someone like, hey, you need to move out of that, baby. Hey, move to the left, or you see this frontal cone. If you're in the farthest part of the frontal cone, you don't have a lot of space to move. Or if you're in the skinniest part of the frontal cone, do you see how much time you have to move before the frontal? So, I won't
maybe
get
there's a
onto a
patchwork
full
that has
rant.
double dragon, and then so it's a frontal cone and a backle cone, which doesn't make any sense. But like we have that terminology.
Well, there is a monster in
both
Theater of Pain that does have a backle cone, though. There is backle cones in this game, right? Like there is you know what I'm talking about? Touchpad. You know what I'm talking about? No, he does in Theater of Pain.
Yeah.
When you're on, he has a backle cone. Yeah, people die to that.
Double dragon. Sometimes you eat some food, you should. Yeah. There you go.
No, I think you brought up a really good point, which I think there's two parts that I think are really important, which is as a tank, you have so much weight on you to kind of carry those as those keys start to become resilient keys and as you start to kind of like, well, let's 4 out of 5 times I'm probably going to fail this key, but let's get it back up to here. And then by the time you get that attempt key where you try to increase your key, it's like, all right, here's the key, and then fail, like immediately 5 to 10 minutes in, fail. And a lot of that weight is put onto tanks to be kind of that role. And it's kind of unfortunate that there isn't necessarily, like, we're starting to get more systems that help out those keys to be less of just immediate failure, immediately dropping. But the other thing, which I've soapboxed on plenty of times, is I hate that the game right now, it feels more than ever is I'm playing a MOBA. Like I'm playing it top down because I'm just I haven't zoomed out max, or I haven't zoomed in because the ceiling's too low, and I'm just looking straight down at my character.
Oh, and then you accidentally put an AoE on the roof.
Yeah. Drop your WK like on the side of the wall.
It's like, oh, cool. No, that's nice. Okay, it's over there.
Yeah.
So I can speak a lot on this one too. Especially as a tank role, like it's somehow defaulted to be the tank's responsibility to know the route and know everything that's going on, and it's not the DPS's responsibility. In fact, it's not even the healer's responsibility. The healer's not leading the pack, right? So
they learn on the job.
It's all of a sudden the healer problem. It's not the DPS issue. By the way, I'm saying this as a melee DPS. It's not the DPS issue. Somehow, I don't know how that happened. The healer definitely knows. The healer knows what you got hit by, and you just don't want to pass up to it. In the dynamic of how like keys have evolved since like the first iteration of what we have today for Mythic Plus is actually challenge modes, and challenge modes started Miss Bedario, and it was just a time scenario. But the thing is, it wasn't a scaling system. In fact, you were just scaled down. So you had a flat eye level. Everybody walking in had the exact same item level. The only way you could juice up your character was farming gear that had sockets on it. That was it. And the thing was, it wasn't a key. It didn't deplete. You just attempted it. And so like if you did a bad run or somebody died, you just reset it and went again. There was no, like, the only terrible thing about it was like if you kept failing that first pull. That was kind of it.
Yeah.
And then now it's evolved into Mythic Plus. And at the very start of a season, I keep trying to tell folks in my community, is the best time to jump into Mythic Plus. Don't wait until the end of the season. It's the very first of the season. Because you'll be doing like a 10 equivalent, which would be like the equivalent of like a 15 or 17 now with like lower gear, but you're going to be playing with players that actually want the key to be finished. So you have a healthier experience in playing in the first month of the season. And then people come in and it's like, I can't get into keys. What's happening? It's like, well, you're in late season. You're like, what do you mean it's late season? It's 2 months in. I'm like, I hate to tell you, but that's kind of how it works. And that's because the education from the community comes out. It's like, oh, this is the perfect route to do. Ooh, you need this add-on. Oh, you need this weak order to know what mobs you can spell reflect as a warrior. And then because you don't know those things because you're jumping in, maybe you have a life, wild. Then all of a sudden it's the blame is onto you for not doing 4 hours of research before you go into it. And as Minty said, it's like jumping in is difficult. And I think one of the things Blizzard could have corrected was the resilient key scenario. The resilient keys and how they work. It's good for when you're starting to climb towards Keystone Hero, Keystone Legend, those things. But it really should be there for the lower keys too.
No, I agree.
It should start at like a 5. Cool. Who cares? Like, let people have a 5 resilient key. I don't think it's breaking the game in doing such. I think the only complication might be that if maybe you bring a friend into the game and they don't feel comfortable doing that 5 and only have his 5s, that could be a problem. And there's less lower keys to have practice. But also, those friends pulling that one in, you can still downscale your key if you need to. Like, you can still talk to that NPC for it. But it's just this weird domino effect. And like right now is like the worst time to do keys. Because the next patch was already announced. People are like, oh man, maybe I should rush to get my stuff done. And then you're going to be playing with people that maybe don't know what's going on. Which
the
is
equivalent of Monday night raiding, but for keys.
Exactly. And then, so you're doing these keys, and like maybe you're a veteran player, maybe you played like 2 seasons ago, so you already kind of get the idea of what's going on. But then that person's frustrated because like people don't know what's happening. It's like, well, the people in that pool of doing keys don't know what's going on. That's kind of the point of doing those keys. And people just have this quick burnout in their head and like PTSD trickles in of like the worst key they ever experienced 3 expansions ago. And they're like, I'm out of here. Leave me alone.
That is me as the tank. Yes.
Yeah, I've had actually somebody reach out about like the mythic queues, and they're like, I'm doing really well individually. I have like a 6, like I forget when they reached out, but we'll say for right now it's the equivalent of like 670s, you know, like decently geared, running really consistent like T11 delves and all this stuff. Like they're a good player, but they said that their social anxiety was preventing them from pugging because it's just so contentious. It's like shark infested waters. And I have found like the tank role, like you said, it is just super dicey, and there are a lot of people who love to play tank like I do, but I run damage for mythics because I just recognize, like, I would consider myself casual as well, and I really am in it for the social aspect. I think grinding and throwing your head against that wall and trying to hit like the really tough content with a group of people that you know is great for the social part of it. But if you are a solo player, it's really, really tough to just build the, I would say, the self-esteem. But the only way you build the self-esteem is by finishing the task, right?
By
So
doing
if you're getting your keys bricked
Right.
over and over and over, it's just like, oh, well, now the common denominator is me. And now
Right.
I feel like I suck at playing this game. And so it's just, it goes from this really awesome, like decompress, it can be great team building, it can be great for you, like, you know, mentally and emotionally, to now it's like, oh, there's this other thing that I get to spiral about and like have an existential crisis.
Here we go down the wormhole. All right, neat.
Right.
So with that said, what do you guys think about the additions, if you didn't know, of not only checkpoints in Mythic Plus, but also there being a sort of, I guess you could say, an anti-toxicity, but maybe holding people hostage is the argument as well, of making the deserter a kind of a more punishing thing. Basically, the system is
The Scarlet Letter.
the vote to surrender, kind of like in League, is a thing. And then if you're a leaver, you'll be marked, and you don't get that mark removed until you complete a key. So what do you guys think about that? Overall W, or do you feel like this might catch some people in the crossfire, save the people who are doing those high keys who don't want to be held hostage by somebody who doesn't know where they're doing, maybe somebody who maybe see a group that wants to push through it? Do you think it may be overall better just over time? Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Okay, so I would like to weigh in slightly dipping into the aspect of PvP.
Okay.
When you lose an arena, you lose rating. When you lose a key, you don't lose anything but 20 minutes or 10 minutes or sometimes even 45 minutes if it's completely uncompletable. But however, whenever that argument is brought up about PvP versus PvE and how you don't really lose in PvE, people talk about how it can be more toxic, and how it would make the community even more toxic. Now, I am not someone I've only done like 1 or 2 +10s because, like Touchpad was saying, with the PTSD, and I'm just like, I'm out. I got my KSM. I worked really hard for this. And the hard part is really just playing with the pugs. It's not actually the hard part of doing the key. But I think that it is kind of probably more of a hostage situation, but it's also going to be, well, I don't want to be in a hostage situation. So they're going to be, if they aren't already now very choosy about who they bring, even in a +5 or a +6, they're going to be, I feel, even choosier than they were before. People were always complaining about how keys are very choosy. You can't get into one. It's a queue simulator, and things like that. So I think with this change, people are going to be even more cognizant about who they bring to their M+.
I can see them being more picky about it, but I think overall it's a win. This is the first iteration they talked about.
Yeah. And
that might be wild for a lot of people. Oh, no, you think it's a win? What? The major complication was like, especially if you're doing like higher keys, people are like, oh man, I need this last like 14 key for my resilience. And it's like, well, I'm not going to waste 30 minutes in time if it's not going to be done. And also in those keys, you don't need gear. So that's not that benefit. And it's not like you're really fighting for score. It's more so just trying to get resilient keys up. So there's a huge difference between like the higher end of doing like 15s, 17s, 20s, and then doing like 5s. And most people, they might leave a 5. But in most cases, I would like to assume, I haven't been in that territory in a while, I would like to assume they'd attempt to finish it. It's like, oh man, I'm not going to get score off this 5. Dang, I'm out of here. Whereas like when it goes into 10s, 12s, 14s, like for getting up to Keystone Legend, then people will be like, oh, I'm going to waste 30 minutes of time. I'm out. And the benefit is that when those people queue up now as being more selective, they'll see that little Scarlet Letter They're like, oh, this person's like notorious for leaving. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to bring that person because I want to make sure we actually finish the key at least and like give it a try.
Talking about Mythic Plus and sort of what's to come and what to expect, I sort of pulled up on the side here the preview of the season 3 dungeon rotation, and I think in this there's a specific one in here I want to talk, or one or two I want to talk about. But if you can't see it, basically it's Dawnbreaker, Ara-Kara, of course, Floodgate, and then Priory as prior ones that coming back, and then Ecodome being the new one, and then a couple of Shadowlands dungeons as well. So if anyone has anything about the Shadowlands dungeons, that's interesting. I think that they're very thematic, and that to me, I was like, all right, that makes sense a lot. But the two I wanted to talk about was Dawnbreaker and Ara-Kara, because to me, Dawnbreaker was one of the most contentious because of the issues that players had with it, and then Ara-Kara being, of course, the very much the what I think that a lot of people were whenever the votes came out, and there was like a large poll that came out. I guess I was half expecting people were going to pick this one, but it coming up
the funny
again.
Thing is, they mostly voted for it because it's easy, and also because like, ooh, nice passive trinket, gimme, that was it.
Which dungeon is easy? The Dawnbreaker?
Ara-Kara.
Oh, yes.
So like Ara-Kara,
I'm problematic, and I really like the Dawnbreaker.
That's actually a really good dungeon. Yeah,
Dawnbreaker is cool because you got to choose your path a little bit more, so it gave you more creativity in like doing the dungeon. You could see different routes. It's like, oh, we're going this side of the building. I didn't even know you can go in there. Wow.
And like, you know it's short. Like it doesn't take a whole lot of time. I feel.
Yeah, I think the major complications in Dawnbreaker was just some of the actual bugs that were happening inside. Yeah, and I think that's what made a lot of people pissed off. And they already addressed that like in that article. In saying they're going to adjust those things so it's not nearly as much of a complication. Yeah. We'll see how that pans out. More importantly, why the hell is Halls of Atonement in there? Like, Tazavesh makes sense. Like, yeah, we can talk about Ara-Kara and Dawnbreaker, sure, but like,
we asked for a Halls, like, they gave us a Halls.
Great,
fantastic. Has the input because you are a melee player. That's
well, also like they got rid of spell block for prot warriors, and like spell block's really important in that dungeon. But also, I want to see a season that just is
spell reflect the same thing, or those?
No, spell block is
separate. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Spell block is a protection warrior ability.
Gotcha. Oh my!
But Halls of Atonement. Why? Not that. Why are we going back? Why the vent there important? Like just because like Shadowlands. Ooh, let's add another one. And I also still want to see a season just Halls of.
Yeah. I will take any halls that isn't Halls of Infusion, so it's fine.
True.
Ooh, Halls of Reflection then. Ooh, that would be terrible.
Yeah,
but the Tazavesh dungeons are really a good callback. I like the little Tazavesh dungeons. However, they were really hard when we were doing them in Shadowlands. And one thing I don't like when it comes to doing these callback dungeons, and it's just personally me, but the one thing I don't like is like some people are newer, or some people didn't play Shadowlands, so they're just not automatically going to know. And I hate when veterans get into groups and they act like everyone's been playing this game for 25 years.
Yeah.
Plus people will do them better and people will do them different. People have, I mean, this is the perfect example is with like Classic 2019. I think that with the release of that, there was methodologies that even the best players didn't know that became aware. So like people are much more intense than even done an expansion ago. I think that people definitely will approach it from a different way. And I think that there's going to be a group of people like, no, we did it this way back then. And it's like, no, this way is better now. So I think there's going to be butting of heads of like the best route possible.
One of the things I've noticed when they revisit those too is they'll change how some of the abilities worked that were frustrations when it was current content. So I think a good example was Necrotic Wake. They did some changes to it. I think they also made changes. Yeah, they made changes into the Modraxis one.
Theater Pain?
Oh, Theater Pain.
Theater Pain, yeah. So they made changes and adjustments to make it more manageable and less of a pain in the butt, right?
More AoE.
Actually, Theater Pain, I hated Theater Pain in Shadowlands. And now I'm like, yeah, Theater Pain key, let's go. That's awesome. That's good time. It's fine. Yeah. Especially with now having the graphical displays of like a lot of the encounters. You actually see, am I in this or not? And it's like, I'm not. Wow, yay. And then maybe you have to play a thick tard and like your hoofs in there just like a tiny bit and you get sniped, but that's different.
I can't imagine Theater of Pain being easier because it's the one thing standing between me and 3K at this point.
Baby, I will tank you through
Please do. I started
just kidding. I probably can get you 3K.
I started playing in season 4 of Dragonflight, so I'm like still one of those new players that you were talking about, and it's definitely interesting to see like all of this content come up because aside from the season 1 and season 2 dungeons. I have played none of these, so I
Good
didn't
time
play
to join, though.
Shadowlands, but
All the time to join.
I've been able to listen to people's opinions about everything without my own like bias about it. So that's been really fun because I have a completely like third party perspective, which I, as a therapist, very much enjoy.
So I think that now we all sort of stand at a different stage in our lives, whether it's joining later on or we've played for a long time and we play differently than how we used to. And so one of the things that I love to bring up between people is the faction divide. I think Horde and Alliance, whether you play one or the other, doesn't necessarily matter to me, even though that there is a Horde preference on on this side of the table. But with that being said, I think that kind of interacts with the story in a different way nowadays. And that is the faction divide just a necessary standard that we have to maintain, or is it roadblocking the game in general? I mean, with things like cross faction, it's not ever fully quite there, but we are adding more things. Does it matter anymore? Does the faction divide matter anymore? And when we're progressing the story, to big bads or big boss fights and raids, and now with the introduction of the new storyline of the Rise of the Red Dawn, for those of you who have or haven't played it, doesn't necessarily matter. But a lot of people are saying that now the retail storytelling is kind of dropped off. We need to go back to our roots of the faction divide being the main thing, but simultaneously
that's
Blizzard
just classic
saying,
Andy's complaining that things changed. Don't
simultaneously Blizzard saying we will never have another BFA, we will never have another civil war like we did. So
even saying BFA was like a huge faction divide is kind of wild, because like in comparison to other expansions, it wasn't even nearly as close or such. We didn't even get a conclusion. We had to ask the devs. It's like, hey, who won the war? They're like, oh, the Alliance won. It's like, where? What happened? What do you mean? That wasn't in the game at all. Like, can you at least like have like a Alliance banner and Nogamar? Like, haha, sucker nerds. Like, just give us something as like a tell.
Is there anyone in here Alliance or?
I play a Dark Iron Dwarf, but that's just because I'm a big like Lord of the Rings fan. So I love dwarves in general.
I'm just a WoW player. I'm worse than a nerd. Okay, I don't even have other fandoms.
Yeah.
No, true.
One of my streamer friends, he famously went on a tirade about how we're all adults here. He went on a tirade about how if you are for the Alliance, then you are for ethnic cleansing and that you are like a terrible person, basically. And I was just like, okay, all jokes aside, I think like sociologically speaking, people love a cause to get behind. So like the bigger the enemies get, I think that it, as you were saying, Sean, like I don't see it going back to a super divisive like,
because every expansion ends up pretty much being that. It's like, oh, we gotta work together to beat the big bad, and it's like Disney Adventure, and it's like less Disney Adventure this time, hopefully.
Right.
But realistically,
power of friendship,
it's not there. And then you're blasting N'Zoth as like everybody has glow bears all of a sudden. It's like, what the hell is happening?
And it's like after we just saved the world, let's go back to fighting over it. Like, canonically speaking, it doesn't make sense. I think eventually, just if you look at like sociological patterns, like it would, because the pendulum swings and people find things to fight about, and resources get limited or territories get like more valuable, yada yada yada.
Somebody burns a tree.
Somebody burns a tree too soon. We're not gonna talk about that.
Things happen.
But I think it's like interesting to see how like people who I think if you want to talk about the faction divide, you have to look at the players that are playing for the lore and the players who are just playing.
Like the faction thing is kind of dead. Do I wish we still had that faction pride for the Horde, yada 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 in the story still? Absolutely. But right now, my loyalties currently align with the Lamplighters, honestly. So I don't really Horde, Alliance, it doesn't matter. I'm behind Farron the entire way.
I feel like faction pride has shifted to class pride. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but like
I would agree.
Yeah, for sure.
So while we're on the topic, warlocks are selfish and they should stay small.
Any casters are disgusting to me.
Yep, true. Mages are rude if they don't give you a portal after the dungeon's done.
Or food.
Or portal to Dalaran.
Yeah.
You know the right.
Exactly. The Crater Dalaran. Yeah.
Or if they portal you to Stoneheart.
Warriors have 2 brain cells. I'll call myself out here. It's fine. If you're gonna give me a whole like cheat sheet on how to do the encounter, don't care. We're going. Everything's gonna be lost in one ear out the other.
It's kind of like the whole thing of like you start to look like your pets, like your pets start to like look like their owners type of thing. It's like once you have the class, you become the class. So it's just what it is.
I'm not buff enough to do that, man. It's a fantasy game. I'm playing a big farm because I can be the big guy finally.
With the introduction of a news story and really sort of as we sort of reach the back half of the War Within, do you feel like we're at a stage at like we're so back, like here we are, we're so back? or do you feel like we're going to be looking back on this as it's, looking forward, but also looking in advance, looking back at this patch? Are we going to look back and go, wow, we were so wrong, like that this was not good, this is bad? Where do you stand currently?
Well, first off, it's just Argus 2.0. Like, let's be real here, which is fine because Argus was great. That was really cool. But Undermine was also a fantastic theme. Goblins finally got a time to shine in the story. Beautiful. Absolutely. All the little details and going in the house and stuff, like, fantastic. And then it had one of the, can I swear here?
Yeah, you're good.
Awesome. One of the shittiest fucking systems for like renown and for like, oh, here's a raid renown that, by the way, you get 1 per week, 20 weeks of raid. Dude, most guilds don't do that. Are you kidding me? Like, what the? And sorry, I'm going to really pop off here. 4 cartels that you have to choose. You can't even choose like per character, like maybe farm at the same time. And then, oh, let's bring back Paragon mounts. That sounds great. Hey, you're done? No, you're not. Oh, lapped over the next week. You're doing it again, buddy. Oh, you hit Exalted quick. You got your mount. Well, you're locked in that faction. You can't farm for it. And then like insane grinds. Like, it's wild.
Poor execution.
Terrible. Very poor execution.
Yeah.
The theme was amazing. Just, it didn't play great. And then so like, you'll correlate that, like psychologically, you see that zone and you'll be like, terrible. Hate it.
Do I have 40 hours a day to do this?
Yeah, the growing disdain.
I don't, and this is my full-time job now.
Yeah.
I'll say it. This was bad move on Blizzard's part. How dare you? Was time gating everything that they've added it into this patch.
Oh,
yes.
So like, hey, here's Perfect Visions, and I made comical videos and mentioning it and whatnot. But like, it was like, why? Just let us blast at it and try to have fun. That doesn't make sense. And then like, oh hey, so we know we just did this one like 3 weeks ago. You just finished it. Ooh, here's Dashingly Duos, which I think also those are trash too. But like, they added a lot of these things and just like layered it out, and it's purely for stretching out you playing. That's it. I'm okay with having those collection kinds of things. I don't like having a hard stop on trying to do it. And it's like, okay, cool. So I'm playing for 1 hour this week so I can do my Hearths Vision and then not log back in. And then I just have to do it again next week. It's like, no, let me, let's say like you're a dad, the kids are like at school, you finally have the day off. You're like, ooh, I have 4 hours. I'm going to knock this out. I want to do it. And then you get hard stopped an hour in. And it's like, what the hell? Like that kind of sucks.
Like, let me just play the content. And I think like with Dastardly Duos, it's separating the achievement across 7 weeks. And then on the opposite end of things, I think it's the time warped. People are getting the achievement first thing. So it's they try to time gate it, but maybe failed. And then Horrific Visions, of course, with splitting it out. I honestly understood Horrific Visions a bit more as time went on because there was a lot to it. But honestly, the overall time gating, I think it parallels with the amount of sort of recycled content. I think recycled content isn't necessarily always a bad thing. I'd rather play something versus nothing. But whenever the recycled content ends up being either just as lackadaisical, or you go, oh, I remember why this was side patch content. Whenever you kind of like, you keep on doing that over and over again, where it's like, okay, maybe this is kind of overtuned Blizzard, and then they do that 3 or more, 4 or more times, where you're like, okay, can we stop like overtuning something? And then Blizzard is of the mindset, I think right now, where they're very much, their philosophy is like, don't look back, like just push out more content, because we got to keep on a schedule, and we're going to stay on the schedule. We're not going to delay things. It's going to be, we're just going to push out content. And then you get the Nightfall patch, which was buggy, or might still be, might have been buggy up until,
which their claim is like, they don't have enough people playing PTR, but also you're not giving player base incentive to play PTR.
Exactly.
Right.
Like, even if it's like a battle pet or a toy banner, like you could do something. But the thing is, that system can be abused, because then it's like, oh, you get your banner if you like just report 5 things. Then you just have people like logging in, reporting random stuff, and then it doesn't work. So there's not really a good way to help create that system, except for maybe like if you complete the quest line. I would say this would be the best solution. Like, complete the quest line, or do like raid testing or dungeon testing, completing a dungeon and then putting in a report. Maybe that gives you the credit towards it, right? Or really wild, give them Trader's Tender.
What do you think, like 5 tender or something? Or
and then you could just like, that would give incentive to who's playing the game more? Collectors. And then they have time to spend on doing that, and they're going to want to collect things, so they'll invest that time into testing out stuff.
And also realizing, if you don't give feedback, they're just not gonna know, and you have to play this you have to play the game mode that you've given no input about. You know what I'm saying? So I realized a bit ago that if I don't say anything, no one will. That's what it feels like.
And I think that'll happen in the Reddits, where the people are like, Like if you don't glaze it, people will flame you absolutely for be like why are you judging this? Like you can't judge this, then we won't get the content. It's like, no, you can't have an opinion. You have to be critical. Right. You have to be critical in some shape or form. Otherwise, like things won't change for the better.
One of the corny, like rhymey phrases that my mom always told me is like, you can't oppose something unless you propose something. So I think about like the PTR in that way, how it's like, okay, like if you if you have the opportunity to like test this material and you don't do it and you don't say anything about it, you lose your right to complain about it afterward.
True.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they have a PTR every season.
There's no point in just complaining something unless you have like an idea for a solution.
Let's talk about the mandatory things, the things that have become I'd say in place of borrowed power systems. We've gotten things like the Cersei circlets, and now with the new Delve belts, and now third being the Arashi wraps. So the new cape is going to be sort of this next legendary sort of gimme item. And now there's been a lot of controversy, a lot of talk about, well, this is just one more thing. Sure, it's great to have a nice high item level item, but alternatively, this locks up your crafted slots that you've spent time probably building on. And then while it's taken place of these borrowed power systems, it's kind of coming at a point during the expansion that it feels like borrowed power, even though it's not necessarily that. So what do you guys feel about that being added as the next legendary item?
Wild statement is there's always been borrowed power that's called your gear. So like, or the trinket you have. So it is borrowed power because you're not using it permanently. But that's just a loose statement. In the idea and talking about like crafting, major problem. What happens when you get a cloak in your mythic dungeon vault? So hopefully they address that soon. That'd be cool because obviously you're not going to need that, right? With the Soul Hunter's boss dropping boots that increase the frequency rate of how this cloak procs by 50%, that's also a locked up spot. With having the Delve belt, that's also a locked up spot. Depending on how your class plays, maybe it really bolsters off of mastery. You might still be using that ring like for a while, sadly. Like even some people are still using it now. I only just recently swapped off using it. And so you have all these limited slots now. On top of that, 4-piece. So you need to have your 4-piece gear, you need to have a cloak, you need to have those boots, you need to have this belt. You need to have these 2 trinkets, right? You don't really have a lot of freedom. What, 2 rings and a neck and bracers? Like that sucks. That's not really, you don't really have a lot of freedom for creating how your class is going to play or like what stats you may prefer. Obviously with this cloak, it says the unknown socket part, and there is a fiber that you can get crafted from tailors that lets you choose the secondary stat, which is also going to be a huge, just 1 secondary stat instead of having typically 2. So instead of like your stats being, let's say the overall amount, just for keeping small numbers for making it easier, would be like 100 of secondary stats. Then you have like 50 mastery, 50 haste. Instead, this is going to be 100 mastery or 100 crit. So it's going to be all that stat locked into that. So there's a benefit there. There's still some freedom, but realistically, you're not going to look at this cloak ever again. Like it's just, that's the slot you have. Cool. Not great, in my opinion. I think there's too many little borrowed power systems, as we'll just keep terminology for it. I'll make it easier. That it robs you of your freedom in building your character, being excited to get a drop. And then also you don't have to get nearly as many drops now, which could be seen as a benefit because it will be easier to gear up, right? Because you don't have to worry as many slots. But overall, I think it's not a great idea. And crap, dude, like we had a cloak in MoP, we had a cloak in Battle for Azeroth, and now we have a cloak in the War Within. Could you choose a different slot this time? Like maybe give like bracers. Like nobody cares about bracers. Give us artifact bracers. Who cares?
Conversely, I would say that having an item be sort of a required part to like you have to do that, have that item in order to do the content, makes it feel like its usefulness only exists within that content specifically for that. Yeah. So it's like it makes it feel narrow. Whereas it always felt good. Just a weird, I guess, like cool thing that I thought was always nice is that whenever you had gear that you could use into the next expansion. I think that's something that's gone away as time has gone on with WoW, but it is something that I do miss about WoW, where you could have something that's like, I got this a while back ago, took a lot of effort, but I can use it still to this day, and it actually still has use to it. Right. And now that's why you have a lot of people who hoard stuff in their banks. But
the conversation about legendaries, it could work like how they did in Dragonflight. Blizzard's done a way better job with making it so you can't data mine things. They're now choosing what you can see.
Yeah.
They have way more control over that. There was a huge problem for that for like 6 years, and everything was just spoiled and data mined, and it sucked. And nowadays, what we can find is what they're allowing us to find. They have a way better encryption process now. So for all we know, there is a legendary, but we won't see that until Mythic Dimensius is defeated.
They're just throwing us breadcrumbs.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's like, hey, how about this? Hey, how about that? Demon Hunter third spec, maybe. So they're letting us see what they want us to see. So it could still be a legendary. I actually bet there would be. I'm a heavy believer that there probably will be a legendary. But yeah, I do wish like more items actually carried through and had continuous effort. Like I got Fearloth. Shoot, I got it behind me right now. Like, and it's just rotting in the bank. That kind of sucks. Like every once in a while, like, hey, it's legendary week. Grab your old legendaries and you can use them in Mythic Plus. Like that'd be neat. Sure, why not?
I think housing that first attempt to try to bring back stuff from old expansions and have a purpose, other than just existing in your bank slot. So maybe bringing back some of those resources, but not also bringing back some of those items that people still have as well. It would be kind of nice. But at least it's something, I guess, is what I'm saying. But talking about the breadcrumbing of WoW and leading towards the end of the episode, I did want to talk about our special Patreon topic, and it actually leads into some of the news as well, because there was introduction of the possibility of a new Demon Hunter spec becoming a thing. And so with this, as we wrap it up, for those of you who are watching, and thank you for watching the episode, and thank you to all of our co-guests as well for joining us. Join us on the Patreon so you can catch some of this exclusive content. We're going to be talking about Void Hunters, but also some new classes, a new 14th class that we're all going to talk about and make up ourselves, sort of with the idea in mind that we
had homework.
There's a tiny bit of homework. So with that in mind, we're going to have a little bit of discussion of that in the Patreon discussion, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we think would be a great addition to World of Warcraft as a new class. But for those of you who have joined us, thank you for joining us. Of course, if you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to the page while you're at it. We do podcast content, we do WoW content, we do WoW discussions like this every single day. I am frequently on Reddit pages as well as news pages, because we like to form discussion topics about what's bad, what can be replaced with good, and then what can we look forward to in the future. But talked enough about myself. Please, TouchPad, if you could be first again, let us know what you're doing, what you're up to in WoW, and what kind of things that projects are you working on that we could, and where can we find you as well?
I have too much of an internet backlog. You could Google TouchPadWarrior and find heinous things.
I saw you so young on the internet. I was like, oh my gosh, he didn't have so much of a beard.
First off, I haven't really aged, all right, since I was like 25. Thank you. All right,
the beard, it's like a tree. It's like a tree. You see the rings, like when your beard was this short.
Jiggle physics to it.
Yeah.
And my beard was like way down here, and I was doing like that thing, and I was like, oh god, it has a mind of its own. Hi, TouchPadWarrior. I play WoW on a touchpad, and I drink a lot of whiskey. That's what I do. So if you like collection stuff and endgame content, neat things and stuff, funny videos online, my current crusade is try to hit 100,000 followers on Instagram and TikTok. We're 3,000 away from each. So
I love that.
Do that. That'd be neat. That'd make me happy. Help fight my depression with digital currencies.
And Minty?
Yeah, well, you can find me, MistressMinty, on YouTube. You can find me on MistressMinty on Twitch. You can find me, Mistress of Mist, on TikTok. My content is kind of really just all over the place, but at the end of the day, I am a WoW nerd that loves to share my experience and help guide new players. I think my content more focuses on guides for new players and helping new players, because I definitely want to leave this community, in a better place than how I found it when I first started in Cata. I don't think there was a lot of guides. There wasn't a lot of kindness. And that's definitely something that I focus on. And also, I'm not Novel. Shout out to him. He's an amazing vocal artist. But sometimes I do like to do like little lore videos with those cute little books that you find throughout the game. I just like to read them for people who like a good little bedtime story or a little bedtime short. But that's pretty much just it. Find me on stream, find me on TikTok, find me on Twitter. I'll see you then.
All right, and Sparey.
Yeah, I'm brand new, so I just started like a month and a half ago, but you can find me on TikTok and on Twitch. I have like a baby YouTube that is in its PTR era. We have not officially launched.
We get for...
Yeah, I don't know. I could work it out. I probably can. We'll figure something out.
Workshop it. There we go. Okay.
But yes, my handle is Sparey Streams. Wherever you may look for me, if you type that in, chances are good that you will find my content. As I said before, I am a therapist by trade. and I am putting out content that is just overall just positivity, trying to normalize conversations around mental health and therapy and just being a human, because it's not always easy. And if we can make it a little bit easier and a little bit normal so that everybody doesn't feel like they're on an island, then that would be great. My specialty is communication and conflict. So sneak peek for all of you, I'm currently working with Mr. Sparey on launching a couple, maybe a series on just like healthy communication in relationships and things of that nature, because humans are fascinated by how we all get along or don't get along. So yeah, that is my niche, and I would love to just have any conversation and hear anybody's story that allows me to hear it.
Definitely can't wait to see you explore that.
Yeah, no, once again, I think that WoW is a fantastic space to sort of weave that into, just because there's a lot of people I think that don't necessarily grow up with that because they kind of grew up with WoW, and the version of discussing things is kind of through the lens of WoW, and so it's nice to have somebody in the space who's mentally healthy. so I think that's a good thing to have. So with that being said, thank you guys for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit more, but of course, we're going to take a little break and then talk a little bit more about WoW classes. But as per always, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.